Good morning and welcome to the Wild Edibles Tuna Room this morning. Today is February the 2nd. We've got some great specials to show you. Staying with the Long Island theme that I did last Monday, we're going to show you some other things that come from Long Island. We're going to start first with the monkfish. Monkfish traditionally was a trash fish. It's known as poor man's lobster because the meat is very similar to lobster, however at a fraction of the cost. Back in the day, this fish used to be a trash fish. No one bought it and it used to be worth pennies. Now the finest restaurants are serving it and it's worth just as much as, you know, your striped bass or any other fish. Usually it comes already cut in tails for you like this because most of the rest of the fish is not usually utilized in, say, American cooking. Koreans or Asian cooking, they use the stomachs for soup, the heads for stock, and the liver is actually going to Japanese cooking for an imo, the Japanese version of foie gras. But this is a great fish to utilize. It has a very high yield. Really the only waste you have is the skin down here, and then you really have your two nice big loins. You want to make sure your monkfish has this white meat that's, you know, a nice snow white. But also monkfish is traditionally known to have parasites, so you want to make sure you go through it and look for any worms that might be still on the flesh. It's easy to pick out, it shouldn't be anything you should be afraid of. Our next fish is the black bass. Black bass are coming locally right now, and the quality on them could not be any better. I mean, look at those gills. You don't see that red of gills in live fish. I mean, these fish are spectacular right now. The eyes are bright, the fish is beautiful, the color's still on the skin of the fish. Just couldn't be any better. I would say just buy it, just so you can check out the quality yourself. Our next is a very unique oyster that just came to us. These are known as fancy sweets. Fancy sweets are actually baby parakeet oysters. You can't just do this with any oyster because the meat wouldn't fill out in the shell. However, this particular oyster species, the meat fills out in the shell while it's just young. So when you open it, it looks just like a miniature full-grown oyster, which is so unique because you don't usually see oysters that are this small. The only other oyster that you would find this small would be your Olympias, and those are West Coast. So, you know, this is a nice local oyster you can have that's very unique and something you probably haven't seen before. Lastly, we're going to do a little segment on tuna today. Tuna, which can't be caught locally. We try to source it as locally as possible. However, tuna does come from all over the world. We try to stick with North Atlantic fish because the colder waters just produces better meat. You get a nice firmer flesh in tuna when you get it from the North Atlantic. Right here we have two nice specimens. The tuna always comes head off, or generally head off, due to the extra weight you pay for shipping. Generally in American markets we go for the color of the loin rather than fat. Let's say in the Japanese markets. The fat makes the meat a whiter color, so a lot of American chefs don't understand that fat, well, as we know in meat, is more flavor. However, in tuna, for whatever reason, they don't see it that well. Well, when we get in whole tunas like this, we have a very skilled tuna cutter that actually grades our fish by taking a tail sample, and you can see it over here. So all the tails of the tuna are cut and laid out. As you see, the numbers are the weights of the whole fish, and each tail cut can be inspected for fat content, color, and that will give you an example of what the rest of the tuna is going to cut out to. So we don't generally have to cut the whole fish to find out what grade you're going to have. If you can't take a whole fish, you can actually get a slightly better price on the tuna. In American markets, tuna usually grades in 3 different grades. You start with your number 1, which is nice and bright red like this. And then we have your number 2s, which are a little less in color, like so. And then we have your 2 pluses, which are down here, which may be a little softer. I mean, as you can tell, the color is still nicely bright red. All three grades can be used for any raw preparations. However, I recommend you do the number 1 or 2 plus for any sushi or crudos or raw prep. And you leave your number 2s for any dishes that you might need to sear or cook your tuna. That's going to be it from our Wild Edibles tuna room today. Hope you learned something to take with you. Have a great service.